survived. In the hail of bullets, on a battlefield where gunpowder and screams intertwined, he didn't fall. A bullet grazed his shoulder. An explosion threw the man beside him into the air. He was carried away on a stretcher, transported to the rear, to safety, the field hospital. But he didn't know. This wasn't an escape from death. This was entering death's true domain. In the American Civil War, approximately 60,000 soldiers died. Recent research suggests the number may be as high as 750,000. But what's truly chilling isn't the total. It's how that total was composed. For every 3 soldiers who died, only 1 was killed by enemy bullets. The other 2 died from disease, infection, rotting wounds, died in the places they were supposed to trust, died in hospitals. It was an era of extreme awkwardness and extreme cruelty. The technology of killing had entered the modern age. Rifled muskets, mini-balls, long-range precision shooting. The physics of the battlefield had been upgraded. But the medicine of healing was still stuck in the Middle Ages. And so, an absurd reality emerged: a soldier could survive a battle involving 100,000 men, only to die from a doctor's unwashed hands. He could dodge artillery fire, only to be killed by a sponge. The same sponge, used on dozens, hundreds of patients, never cleaned. Just dipped in a bucket of increasingly red water, then pressed against the next open wound. This is 1861. Humanity doesn't know about bacteria, doesn't understand infection. Louis Pasteur has proposed germ theory, but most doctors dismiss it as nonsense. They believe in miasma, bad air, imbalanced humors. They believe in something called laudable pus. Yes, laudable. Praiseworthy. Civil War surgeons genuinely thought that thick, creamy pus oozing from a wound was a good sign. A sign of proper healing. The body expelling its bad humors. If a wound wasn't producing pus, some doctors would deliberately irritate it, pack it with dirty cloth, introduce foreign material. To encourage infection. They were trying to make their patients sick, not out of cruelty, out of ignorance. And the result? Soldiers who survived horrific battlefield injuries would lie in hospital tents, watching their wounds turn black, watching the flesh around the amputation site begin to rot, smelling that sweet, sickly smell that meant gangrene had set in. Hospital gangrene. An infection so aggressive it could consume an entire limb in 48 hours. So virulent that soldiers begged not to be taken to the hospital. "Leave me on the field," they'd say. "I'll take my chances here," because they knew. Everyone knew. The hospital was where you went to die. But let's go back. Back to the moment that made all of this inevitable. The weapon. In the 1850s, a French army captain named Claude Etienne Minier invented something that changed warfare forever. A conical bullet, hollow at the base. When fired, the explosion of gunpowder expanded the base, making it grip the rifling inside the barrel. This made the bullet spin, made it stable, made it accurate at 500 yards or more. Suddenly, you could kill a man from half a mile away. But accuracy wasn't the problem. What the mini-ball did to the human body, that was the problem. Modern bullets are designed to pass through tissue, in and out. Terrible, yes, but survivable. The mini-ball was soft lead. When it hit bone, it didn't pass through. It flattened, mushroomed, tumbled, fragmented. A single shot to the femur would shatter it into dozens of jagged pieces, each one driven deep into the surrounding muscle like shrapnel. The bone didn't just break, it exploded. And 1860s medicine had no way to fix that. No X-rays to see the damage. No antibiotics to fight infection. No understanding of how bones heal. The only option was amputation. And it had to be done fast. They called them sabones. With hundreds of wounded men piling up outside the tent, screaming, bleeding, dying, speed was everything. The average amputation took 5 to 7 minutes. Cut through the skin in a circular motion. Pull it back like rolling down a sock. Saw through the bone, a large, coarse blade designed for speed, not precision. Tie off the arteries. Stitch it closed. Done. Next patient. The severed limbs were tossed out the tent flap. By the end of a major battle, they would pile up outside the hospital like cordwood. Arms, legs, hands, feet, some still wearing boots, some still with rings on the fingers. A Union soldier named Carlton McCarthy described what he saw after the Battle of Chancellorsville. The surgeons stood at their tables, their sleeves rolled up, their bare arms as well as their linen aprons smeared with blood. Around them, pools of blood and amputated arms and legs in heaps. Another soldier wrote, "I saw a pile of limbs outside a hospital tent that was taller than I was. I counted over 100. This was the reality. An assembly line of amputation. A factory of mutilation. But here's what most people don't understand. Most of those men didn't die from the amputation itself. They died from what came after. Picture a young private. Let's call him Thomas. His leg has been amputated. The surgery took 6 minutes. He survived it. He's carried to the recovery tent, laid on the ground next to 50 other men. For the first day, he feels okay, weak in pain, but alive. By the third day, he develops a fever. By the fourth day, the stump of his legs starts to smell. By the fifth day, the flesh around the amputation site has turned black. It's spreading. By the sixth day, he's delirious. His body is burning from the inside as the infection rages through his blood. By the seventh day, he's dead. Because of death, hospital gangrene. Spread by the same instruments, the same sponges, the same unwashed hands that were supposed to save him. The bullet didn't kill Thomas. The surgeon did. But it wasn't just the hospitals. For most soldiers, the real killer was something else entirely. The camp itself. Imagine 10,000 men crammed into a few acres of muddy ground. Tents packed so tightly you can hear your neighbors cough through the canvas. The latrines, long, open trenches, are dug uphill from the water source, or right next to the cook fires, or both. Nobody understands germ theory, so nobody understands why this matters. Flies feast on the waste in the latrines, then land on the food being prepared for dinner. Soldiers drink from streams contaminated with their own excrement. Cooking utensils are rinsed in the same water used for bathing. The result is a biological catastrophe. Soldiers had a nickname for dysentery. They called it the two-step. 2 steps from your tent to the latrine, and you wouldn't make it. Dysentery was the single greatest killer of the war. It caused violent, bloody diarrhea that would dehydrate a man in days. There was no treatment. Soldiers would lie in their own filth, too weak to move, slowly dying of thirst, even as their bodies expelled every drop of water. A Confederate soldier named Sam Watkins wrote, "I would rather face 1,000 Yankees than have the disease they call dysentery. It kills more men than all the bullets." The numbers prove him right. In the Union Army alone, there were over 1.7 million recorded cases of diarrhea and dysentery. At least 44,000 soldiers died from it. More than were killed at Gettysburg, Antietam, and Shiloh combined. And dysentery wasn't alone. Typhoid fever killed another 30,000. Pneumonia thrived in the overcrowded winter camps. Scurvy rotted the gums of soldiers living on hardtack and salt pork. Smallpox swept through the ranks. Malaria plagued those fighting in the swampy south. Over 1.3 million cases. If you want to see the absolute worst of Civil War medical conditions, look at Andersonville Prison in Georgia, designed to hold 10,000 prisoners. At its peak, it held 33,000. No shelter, no sanitation. A single stream ran through the camp, serving as both water source and sewer. In 14 months, 13,000 Union soldiers died there, not from bullets. From dysentery, scurvy, gangrene, and exposure. A death rate of nearly 30%. When the war ended and the camp was liberated, photographs of the survivors shocked the nation. Skeletal figures with hollow eyes, barely able to stand. They looked like victims of famine, not war. But here's the thing about catastrophes. Sometimes they force change. The Civil War became the crucible in which modern military medicine was forged. The failures were so catastrophic, so undeniable, that they demanded systemic change. And one man led that change. In 1862, a Union Army surgeon named Dr. Jonathan Letterman was appointed medical director of the Army of the Potomac. What he found was chaos. After major battles, wounded soldiers would lie on the battlefield for days, waiting for someone to carry them to a hospital. Many bled to death while help was only miles away. Letterman looked at this system and saw it for what it was: murder by incompetence. So he rebuilt it from the ground up. Letterman created the first professional ambulance corps. Trained medical personnel whose only job was to retrieve and transport the wounded. For the first time in military history, wounded soldiers could expect to be evacuated within hours of being injured, not days. He invented the concept of triage. Before Letterman, doctors treated patients in the order they arrived, or based on rank. Letterman's system was brutally pragmatic red tag life, threatening injuries that could be saved with immediate intervention. These patients went first. Yellow tag serious injuries that could wait a few hours. Green tag walking wounded, treated last. Black tag injuries so severe the soldier would likely die regardless of treatment. These men were given morphine and left to die, so resources could focus on those who could be saved. It was cold, ruthless, but it worked. Letterman's triage system is still used today in every emergency room, every disaster zone, every battlefield in the world. He created a 3-tier hospital system: first aid stations behind the front lines, field hospitals a few miles back, general hospitals far from the battlefield. This assembly line approach to trauma care became the blueprint for modern military medicine. Letterman's system faced its ultimate test in July 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg. Over 3 days, 51,000 men were killed, wounded, or went missing. But thanks to Letterman's reforms, the evacuation of the wounded was the most efficient of the war. Within 24 hours, nearly all Union wounded had been transported to field hospitals. It wasn't perfect. Thousands still died of infection and disease. But for the first time, the medical system didn't completely collapse under the weight of mass casualties. We should also mention the nurses. Women like Clara Barton, who delivered supplies to the front lines and tended to the wounded under fire. She would later found the American Red Cross. Dorothea Dix, who organized over 3,000 women to serve as Union nurses. Mary Edwards Walker, the only woman to receive the Medal of Honor, who served as a battlefield surgeon despite constant harassment from male colleagues. These women worked in conditions that would break most people. They held down screaming men during amputations. They cleaned wounds crawling with maggots. They wrote final letters home for soldiers who couldn't hold a pen. And they did it without recognition, without rank, and often without pay. By April 1865, the guns fell silent, 620,000 dead, maybe 750,000. More American deaths than World War I, World War II, Korea and Vietnam combined. Of those 620,000, approximately 400,000 died not from violence, but from disease and infection. They died because medicine wasn't ready for the war it was asked to fight. But here's the paradox. That failure saved millions of lives in the future. Within a decade, Joseph Lister would introduce antiseptic surgery to America, finally proving that invisible germs were the true killers. The ambulance system pioneered by Letterman became the foundation of modern emergency medical services. The concept of triage would save countless lives in every war, every natural disaster, every mass casualty event for the next 160 years. The military hospital networks established during the Civil War evolved into the VA hospital system. The soldiers who died in those blood-soaked hospital tents didn't know they were part of something larger. They didn't know their suffering would lead to breakthroughs that would save future generations. They just knew pain, fear, and confusion, but their deaths were not meaningless. Every sterile operating room today exists because doctors in the 1860s finally learned that dirty hands kill. Every ambulance racing through city streets exists because Jonathan Letterman refused to let wounded men die waiting for help. Every emergency room triage system exists because the Civil War taught us that in a crisis, you cannot save everyone, so you must choose wisely who to save first. The American Civil War was many things: a battle over slavery, a test of democracy, a clash of industrial and agricultural societies. But it was also the bloodiest medical education in human history. 60-20,000 tuition payments, paid in full. The lesson: war doesn't just kill soldiers. It kills the illusions we have about our own competence. It exposes the gap between our ability to destroy and our ability to heal. The Civil War proved that humanity had mastered death. Now it had to learn how to fight it. The operating theaters are empty now. The hospital tents have long since rotted away. The piles of severed limbs have turned to dust. But the systems born in that blood-soaked chaos, they're still saving lives today. I'm Tim, watching the past so we can understand the present. And together, we keep history reborn. I'll see you in the next era.